Hey everyone, my name is Miranda and I'm an educator for the Swirly Doos design team. Today's video is going to be covering a start to finish process of the cover of the Prima Mixed Media album that comes in the October Technique kit. And mine looks like this. And I'm just going to do a step-by-step video of everything I did as I was creating this, using the gessos, the brick mask, the tea time paper, everything that comes in the kit. So I hope you guys enjoy. Okay, so the first thing I'm doing is I'm just taking some different mists and I'm going in with some pinks and some blues and I'm just spraying on top of the cover, and that beautiful resist pattern will start to show through. And then in a few minutes I go in off camera and I use some of the primary elements and I make it into a shimmer mist, and I also spray that on there just in random areas just to give it some more depth. And when you mix your primary elements, it's going to turn an kind of greenish type color. So what I did is I just added a few drops of black alcohol ink in with that, and it kind of overtook the greenness and made it more dark, but that beautiful shimmer from the primary elements shows through. And just kind of wipe off your sprays as you go to show the resist pattern. Now I've taken about a 3 by 3 inch square of the Prima Tea Time paper that comes in your kit, and I have tore down the middle of it and then rolled those edges back to create like a V. And I'm going in with my crocodile and I am punching equally spaced holes up the side of that cutout. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lace this up almost like a corset would be laced up, but instead of using any kind of fabric, I actually went in with some chain because I really wanted this cover to be pretty grungy. And now I'm taking some black Versamark ink and I'm just going over the back of that so that when I peel back those corners, black shows through and not the white. And here I'm just taking my chain and running it through, going up at a diagonal so I create like a cross-stitched pattern. And as you're using, if you decide to use chain, I kind of found that I needed to add little dabs of hot glue to kind of keep that chain in place because it is pretty flimsy and it doesn't hold its form as well as, ribbons or seam binding would do. So I just add little bits of glue as I go along so it retains its nice form. And just keep going up with it until you get to the very end of your little cutout of the tea time paper. And here you can see I went in with those primary elements, and I did that off camera because it was kind of a time-consuming process for me just playing around with it and getting the color that I wanted. And now I've taken the gesso that comes in the kit. It's a very thick gesso. I really had fun working with it. And I'm just kind of highlighting an area here where I'm going to place all of my elements at, because I want it to just be kind of like a ghostly effect, kind of highlighted all outside of that. So I'll go in with just a hard edge at first and kind of map out the area where I'm going to cover it up. And then I'll go in later on and just kind of feather those brush strokes outward so they blend more and it's not just one bold white line. And you can see here I'm doing that feathering. I just turn my page around so that when I use my brush strokes they go downward. For me that works best to do like a feathering blending type motion. I can't do it upwards for some reason. Okay, and now I've taken a resin frame. This frame actually comes in the September Inspirations kit. And I have taken some gesso and I've went over it and covered it really well, and then I've also mixed the primary elements with some gesso in that bowl over there, and I've also went over it in random places with that to give it like a two-toned effect. And then I've taken the primary elements and I'm just going in with a brush and I am going all around the frame, and it's kind of getting into the recessed areas, all of this powder, and when it's not wet it retains that dark brown color that you see right now, but then when it gets wet it reacts to any kind of liquid and turns a green. So I'll go in now and use it just in powder form, and then when I go over it with some gesso in certain areas the green will show through there, so it's kind of a two-toned really cool effect. Looked really marbled on the little frame, and you can alter anything like this, chipboard pieces, anything that you have in your stash. It's really fun to do. And I'm taking my heat tool before I add any of the gesso, and I kind of start out at a distance so that it doesn't blow all of the powder off of there, and it's just kind of baking that powder in, almost like an embossing powder. It kind of takes a little while to do it, but I just kept playing around with it, and then as it gets baked in there, I kind of move my heat tool closer and really get that powder solidified onto the little frame. Now I'm taking my tea time paper and I'm just playing with the placement of it. I pulled out a scrap of lace that I had in my stash, and I'm going to put that down below the Prima tea time paper. And I'm just using hot glue to glue it down. I'm really impatient, so I tend to use hot glue very often, but the gloss gel medium would ideally probably be better for this step. And I was playing around with altering some metal with the different stuff. I've gone over the chicken wire with some of the primary elements mixed with gesso, and then just white gesso as well, just seeing how different materials would react to this wonderful, wonderful product. The primary elements is so versatile. I found that you could alter anything in your stash. The only thing I didn't try was fabrics, and I'm going to start trying that very soon because I think you can dye your fabrics as well with the beautiful pigment powder. I'm just taking some more paint and kind of going around the edges of the other side where I tore a little V out as well. And now I'm going in with the gesso, just the white gesso on top of that frame, and hitting some of that primary elements in different areas, and it really brings the green color out. And then when I heat set it, I keep my heat gun really close to it, and it creates bubbles out of the gesso, so it's a very textured effect. And now I'm wanting to use my brick mask, but I don't want it to be just white. So I'm mixing together in a bowl some of the gesso, some of the gloss gel medium because it's very thick and it's really good for, the adhesion of the paints. And then I'm mixing some cream paints, and I go in a minute and I add some brown paint, and I just keep mixing all of these together and adding more to create the color that I'm going for, so that when I do the brick stencil on top of my elements here, there's a contrast between just the white gesso and then the bricks. I'm just finding the placement for my mask where I want it to go. I want it to be pretty random. I don't ever like any harsh lines, so I try to just blend it randomly all over the mask. And I'm just using my palette knife to do this. You can use the popsicle sticks or old credit card, a straight edge chipboard piece, anything you have, just to spread your paint on top of your brick mask. I'm just making sure I do a nice even coat and that the tops of it are very smooth. I don't want any texture on that. And now I've went into the top as well. And then I've taken that Glimmer Mist that I added the primary elements to. So it's like a greenish blackish color, and it's got the shimmer from the Glimmer Mist, which was a gold color, and then it's also got the maroon shimmer from the mica powder. So it's a really pretty effect. It's like a marbled glimmer mist. It's really unique. So I've just dabbed the nozzle into the bottle, and I've squeezed the plunger a little bit, and what it does is it sucks up the liquid into the nozzle, and then you can just go and drop that on your page. And I'm going all in between the bricks with this altered glimmer mist. And because I added some alcohol ink and a little bit of the black glimmer mist, it kind of overpowers the green again, and it makes it more dark. And I'm just heat setting it so that when I go to do the top part, it's not running all over my page, so it stays exactly how it is right now. And I'm just doing the sides as well, going in between all of the bricks. Okay, now I'm doing it to the top of the page as well, and I'm just doing this one upside down so that it runs really nicely in between all of those grout lines of the brick mask. And now I'm just playing with the placement of my elements. I've taken the beautiful flowers that come in the kit and the leaves that come on the collection as well, and I'm going to take a paintbrush and go over all of those with a little bit of gesso just to give them a more shabby look. The leaves that come with your tea time flowers in this kit have a really pretty raised effect on them. So when you go over them with gesso, it just highlights those raised areas and it makes it look really shabby and just whitewashed and pretty. And then I'm just playing with the placement on where I want them to go on the side of my frame. Now I'm just going to glue my lace down because I'm happy with the way that everything is shaping up. I don't ever glue anything down until I kind of play around with it and make sure that this is where I want to keep everything. And sometimes if I have a lot of layering going on, I will snap a picture of my page on my phone or a camera, anything, just so I remember how I had everything, because before I have had so many layers and then I took everything off and I did not remember how I had it, so I could never get it back to, you know, the way I was satisfied originally. So just a little tip if you're doing a lot of layering. And I'm just going in with some gesso and adding a little bit more so that primary elements will soak through and some more of the green will show and it's not just so white. It just gives it a really grungy effect. And again, if you just hold your heat gun really close, it will start to bubble up that paint. And now I'm picking a contrasting sheet out of the Prima Tea Time paper because I'm going to end up cutting little banners out of it. This is going to be just a little album for me to keep pictures of my family and little journaling, just things that make me happy. So I'm going to use the little banner strips that I end up cutting out for my title. And now I'm just going in and gluing all my leaves and everything down. I take two of them and glue them together to create kind of a fanned effect. And I just want those coming out the bottom. And now I've cut the stems off of the tea time flowers that you get, and I have curled them around my paintbrush. And then I'm going to go over that with gesso, so I paint all of them white and it's not just green. And this just creates a really pretty curly spray effect, and you can have those coming in and out of your flowers. I do this a lot. And I'm just using hot glue to adhere them. Again, you can use the gloss gel medium that comes in your kits, but if you're impatient like me, then hot glue is your friend. And I'm just tucking them down behind the flowers. Okay, and now I'm taking those banner strips that I have cut, and I'm just distressing up the edges of them with some black ink, and I'm going to go in with my alpha stickers that you get in your kit. And I'm going to make my title, and the alpha stickers were a little bit too big for what I wanted, so you'll see me cutting them down so that the squares will fit on my banner. And I also distress up the edges of those with some black ink as well so they stand out a little more. And they match, the alphas that come in the kit, they match the paper perfectly. They're really pretty. And here in that bowl you'll see I've created a sort of glaze. I mixed some gloss gel medium and I mixed some of the Primary Elements pigment powder and then a couple of squirts of water. And I have a little clay piece that I have made here. And I just went over it with that glaze and it just really seeped into the little crevices and made a really grungy effect. So just play around with your primary elements, mix it with anything you have in your stash, and it will really be a pleasant surprise the way it reacts to different things. And like I said, you can adhere it to anything, the papers, the metal, the flowers, anything that you have, that primary elements will just look beautiful on. And now I'm taking some chain. I really like working with metal, so I'm taking some of that chain that I used to lace up the tea time paper, and I'm just creating a draping effect on the bottom of my little clay piece. And I usually take my fingers and go around my chain with gesso so that it gives it a more whitewashed look. Okay, so this is pretty much it, y'all. I hope you guys like the cover to my mini album, and I just encourage you to play around, and the primary elements will stretch a long way. That little bit of pigment bottle will go a long way, so just have fun with it, y'all, and I hope you enjoy my start to finish process video. Thanks for watching.